Mark Levin is not holding any punches in regards to Kamala being the illegitimate Democratic nominee. You guys don't want to miss this.
Threw Joe Biden out, that stole the election from the primary voters, 14 some million of them. That now has installed, apparently, the putative Democrat nominee, Kamala Harris, is now telling us she's unbelievable. She was the greatest prosecutor in history. Oh, she was never border czar, despite the fact the border is fantastic. She was never border czar. And don't mention her sex and don't mention her race. Only she can mention her sex and race. And did you know her husband's Jewish? No, I didn't. Does that matter? I'm Jewish too. Well, no, you don't understand. And she's ready to debate Donald Trump, and he's backing out of it. And okay, slow down. Same damnable propaganda, Al Jazeera, Pravda media that's brought us to this point. Now I want you to believe them again. Kamala Harris has never received a single vote from anybody for President of the United States, but she's ready to debate. No, she's not. She's a coward. Well, what do you mean? They're handing her the Democrat nomination. They don't want any competition, none whatsoever. We even saw Margaret Brennan over at CBS News make the warning, oh, you can't challenge her. She's a black woman. Can you imagine a white man challenging her? The party won't stand for it. Whatever the reason, always superficial, Kamala's to be not challenged, not to have an open primary, not to have a debate. She's to be coronated. And then she says, I want to debate with Donald Trump, and he's backing out. Why don't you debate for the nomination, Kamala? You're such a fraud and a phony, it's beyond belief. We know why. We know why, don't we?
Donald Trump is more than willing to debate, but it just seems that Kamala is only willing to debate under certain circumstances. He refuses to go on any other network. Why are the Democrats screaming that Trump is cowardly when Kamala is doing the exact same thing?
Pathetic, Vice President. Nobody can think of a single major thing you've ever done. Seriously. Not a single profundity. In fact, you've been mocked for your word salads left and right. The only issue you seem to care about, and you travel all over the country about it, is abortion. Abortion, 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 abortion. Well, that's very interesting. We have more abortions today than we've ever had since before the Dobbs decision. That is, the Dobbs decision allowed the states to make a decision, and the really, really dark blue states have hit the ground running when it comes to abortion. But Kamala doesn't think there's enough abortions. But I want to talk about Kamala in another way. She's the great tough prosecutor, and she's gonna contrast herself with the convicted felon. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, the great tough prosecutor. Where's the list of the cases that Kamala Harris personally prosecuted as San Francisco District Attorney and California Attorney General, at the trial level or appellate level? I want to see the cases. I want to see their names. I want to look them up so I can present them to you, the American people, and we can go through what a great prosecutor Kamala Harris really was. I'm not asking you what office she held. I'm asking you, if she's a great prosecutor, what did she personally litigate? What personal trials did she handle? How hard is that? Maybe there's 1,000 of them. Maybe she's unbelievable. Maybe she's the greatest prosecutor since sliced bread, as they're presenting. And as Kamala is saying, look at me. Well, Kamala, let me ask you a question. As Vice President of the United States, tell me, how many people have been prosecuted for talking about exterminating the Jews on your watch? I'm just curious. How many people have been prosecuted by your friends, the Soros prosecutors, for violently attacking Jews in the streets, for preventing them from going to schools on college campuses, or getting in their faces and doing all kinds of other things? And tell me, Kamala Harris, how many of those students have you stood up for as Vice President of the United States? How many speeches have you given denouncing what took place in the streets? I know you gave one, and you gave one because your back was against the wall, because one of these students, during one of your great speeches at one of our college campuses, I think it was at George Mason, you talked about how the Jews are committing all these horrific genocidal acts, and your response was, this is why we have a democracy, so we can exercise our First Amendment right. People were so disgusted that then you went to the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, which is run by a former Obama appointee. You gave this speech against anti-Semitism. You only do what you feel you have to do politically, don't you? Tell me, how many How many under our student visa program, how many of these people under the Harris-Biden administration have been deported? Any? Any? No, I don't think so. But if they have, you haven't said a damn thing about it. No, we don't really know where you stand on Israel. You say enough for the liberals. For the liberals, I stand with Israel. You wouldn't even stand, you wouldn't even sit in your seat as president of the Senate when Benjamin Netanyahu gave a speech. That is grotesque. You sent a message to all the river to the sea crowd, to all the Hitler youth. You gave a message to the anti-Semites, to the terrorists all over the world that you don't stand with Israel. I stand with Israel, just not with Netanyahu. Oh, okay. Did Netanyahu get up there and say, I stand with the United States, just not with Biden and Kamala Harris? That's a little too clever. You sent a message that imperils the lives of the hostages who haven't been murdered. You sent a message to Hamas and Hezbollah and to Iran and the Houthis to keep up the fight, because you're not going to sit there while Benjamin Netanyahu speaks. That is grotesque. Oh, your husband's Jewish? Well, I'm Jewish too. And there's a lot of us who are Jewish who are disgusted with this administration, and you in particular. Oh, he's Jewish. Well, let me use this word. It's called Yiddish. He's a Nebush. You know what a Nebush is? Look it up. Now, Harris has given unequivocal support to Ukraine, but she has relentlessly berated Israel with blood libels about Gaza and the humanitarian situation in Gaza. She even did it after Benjamin Netanyahu met with her, left, and then she gave her little speech. She didn't condemn Hamas. She never talks about the leader of Hamas. She never condemns Qatar, which protects the leaders of Hamas. Never, ever. She never condemns Xi, the communist leader of China, for what's going on with the Uyghurs, does she? Never, ever. I can go through the whole list. She saves her hate for the Jewish state. For the Jewish state. In February, she pledged to reward the Palestinians who overwhelmingly support Hamas by 85% or more with a state, their own state. There can't be peace without their own state. So she wants Israel to give up Judea and Samaria, 30% of its country, to the peaceful Palestinians. Who are they? Oh, it's Abbas and Fatah. Really? They just united with Hamas. And they united with Hamas under the tutelage of Xi in communist China. So Israel should give up its territory to the PLO, which is now aligned and always has been with Hamas and now communist China. That's a pretty dumb vice president, if you ask me. She's demanded a ceasefire almost from the beginning, a ceasefire. Who demands a ceasefire when you've been attacked? There was a ceasefire. These are terrorists. They have hostages. They want to kill more. Their leaders say they want to kill more. They want on October 7th every day. They say they want to kill us. And she says there needs to be a ceasefire. With whom?
The thing about these politicians, and Kamala especially, is that they say they want to end the ceasefire, they want no war, they want all this. Yes, they do. Because when you think about it, every single president in modern time, the last 30, 40 years, has gotten us into a war except for Donald J. Trump. He's the only person who actually puts actions behind his words when it comes to Kamala, Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, and even some of the Republican Party, the Mitt Romneys of the world. They want this because it is profitable, and they're just another cog in the military-industrial complex.
Her national security advisor is a guy by the name of Philip Gordon. Look him up. Big Obama, big on the nuclear deal that's going to give Iran nuclear weapons. That's who she's going to want as her Secretary of State. He's an Iranian sympathizer and a virulent opponent of the Israeli government. She said little about the horrendous anti-Semitism in our country. Again, only rarely and only when she feels she has to. That's it. Our enemies are rooting for her. You think they want Donald Trump? Where are the great speeches from Kamala Harris on Israel or on anti-Semitism? Where are they? Look them up. You won't find them. Oh, you'll see a speech. That's it. Where are the demands from her, from the Soros prosecutors to go after these people? There's none. And by the way, you're going to run Kamala on you're the tough prosecutor. You haven't prosecuted crap. That's why I want to see the cases against the convicted felon. That's right. So the Democrats set up Trump with their Soros prosecutor and their Biden judge. And we said they would run on it, and that's what they want to do. So what Kamala Harris is saying to all of you, that she does not believe in the First Amendment, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Sixth, the 14th Amendment. Soviet-style justice, the convicted felon just the way she's going to get this nomination in a Soviet-style system, without a debate, without a challenge, without anything. But let's look a little bit more deeply at the great prosecutor and her record. I noticed the media are having trouble figuring out how to spin this, because on the one hand, she wants to be known as the tough prosecutor. On the other hand, she wants to be known as the progressive prosecutor. She's been both. She has politicized her offices as DA and Attorney General. And I wonder what those 1,500 people think who were prosecuted. She threw the book at them who used marijuana. Oh, now she's for legalizing marijuana. But when she could do something about it, she was throwing them in jail. Gee, I wonder about that. AP a while back, we'll call it 5 years ago, they wrote a piece called Victims Question Kamala Harris's Record on Clergy Abuse. Joey Piscatelli was angry when Kamala Harris emerged as a contender for the Democratic presidential nomination. It brought back the frustration he felt in the 2000s when he was a newly minted spokesman for clergy sex abuse victims. Harris was San Francisco's district attorney. Here's the tough prosecutor. Piscatelli says Harris never responded to him when he wrote to tell her that a priest who had molested him was still in ministry at a local Catholic cathedral. And he says she didn't reply 5 years later when he wrote again, urging her to release records on accused clergy to help other alleged victims who were filing lawsuits. She did nothing, he said. Today, the Northern California spokesman for SNAP, the survivors network of those abused by priests. This piece is 5 years old. Survivors of clergy abuse and their attorneys say that Harris's record on fighting sex abuse within the Catholic Church is relevant, as the U.S. Senator from California campaigns for the presidency as a tough-on-crime ex-prosecutor who got her start prosecuting child sexual abuse cases. They complained that Harris was consistently silent on the Catholic Church's abuse scandal, first as DA in San Francisco, later as California's Attorney General. It goes on. Catholics make up large voting blocks in the city and the state, accounting for roughly a quarter of the population of both San Francisco's metro and across California. There's a potential political risk if you move aggressively against the church, said Michael Meadows, a Bay Area attorney who's represented clergy abuse victims. I just don't think she was willing to take it. It goes on. After Harris took office as DA in 2004, attorneys representing abuse survivors in civil cases asked her office to release church records on abusive priests that had been gathered by her predecessor, Terrence Hallinan. Harris refused, a decision her office said was intended to protect the identities of clergy abuse victims. It'd be virtually impossible to release records without compromising their identity. Victims and their attorneys scoffed at the explanation. The victims wanted the records, you see, contending it would be a simple matter to avoid identifying the victims. What she was saying was utter nonsense, said Meadows, the Bay Area attorney. All she had to do was redact any identifying information. Victims' lawyers said Harris's office also resisted informal requests to help them with their cases at a time when other DAs or their staff members were making themselves available. And
hearing all that does not surprise me whatsoever, because she's a politician at heart. She's going to do whatever it takes to be as electable as possible. She thought taking those cases might hurt her. There's not a chance that she would do that, because it seems like she has no conviction in herself and her morals and what she values. Like, what a world do we live in when the people who are district attorneys, they're supposed to be going after people doing the bad crimes, but before they take action, they think, how will this affect me in the long term? That's not the way you should operate. You should have a set of standards for yourself and from the Constitution and say, you know what, they broke the law, I'm going to go after them with everything I have because it's the right thing to do. There are people suffering in this world who would not be if this person was held accountable. And I also saw a tweet that got like 10 million views. It was talking about how somebody's cousin was in jail for 20 years for marijuana and they're still in prison today. Yet Kamala is running today with an extremely loose interpretation on marijuana, but when she was in the DA's office, she was cutthroat. What does that tell you? These people will do anything, including lie and deceive you, just for a couple more votes. What a sad world that we're living in, where the Democratic nominee for the President of the United States did not receive a single vote. That is just the opposite of democracy. So I don't know how they can call themselves the Democratic Party. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. If you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.